What's up, Mia? How you feeling? You're muted, but hopefully better.
Hey people, how you doing?
I'm tired, but I'm living.
Yeah, I hear you. Same.
Hi, everybody.
How's it
Good
going?
evening.
I see a lot of guests. I assume these are all of our Smorgasburg and Irie Vibes people.
Mr. Campbell for Irie Vibes, Jonathan Butler for Smorgasbord.
Yeah.
Cool. And Victor and Rod.
Yes, hello, greetings.
Hi, Victor. Are you on the committee?
Yes,
Oh, awesome. Well, welcome.
thank you, thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Felice.
Good evening, Felice.
Hi, Mia. Hi, Chairman. I'm on the phone, so it's very sensitive. As I'm saying hello, it just cut me right off.
Oh. No worries. Well, thanks for saying hi, and hopefully you can
Yeah.
make it through, but appreciate you picking up some time on the phone to join us.
I'm on the committee, remember? Yeah, so it's appropriate since I'm on the 71st Precinct Council. I want to look into the youth committee as well and see what's going on there.
Oh, cool. Is that tonight as well?
No, that's I believe I missed that. I'm sorry I did. I wanted to see what they were all about and what was going on with them. Because all of this safety and use, all of this is all connected.
Certainly all connected, yes.
Yeah.
For our guests, we're gonna give it just like 3 more minutes, see if we have other members of the committee arriving. We've got 3 so far, but I think we need about 5 to get properly started. Mia.
Kyrie, is he on? Let me see.
Kyrie's not on. We have Victor, myself, and you.
Okay.
Mia, would you mind maybe sending a little bump via email? I don't have everyone's email addresses.
Sure thing.
I'm gonna
I'll
reach
do it
out to
now.
Kyrie. Yeah.
Thank you. Don't worry, if we don't have quorum, we'll bring this to executive committee and we won't need you to present twice. What was that, Michael?
I said, no worries, I'm here.
Okay, awesome.
I should have 2 folks from the committee that lives on my block. I probably should go ring their bells.
Oh yeah, who's that? Ronald? Is Ronald on their block?
No, I think Suki is on the block. Yeah, and Ronald as well, I think.
Suki's not a part of this committee, but she is on the larger community board.
Oh, okay.
Suki loves to give liquor licenses a hard time, so that'll give you a leg up.
Well, well, yeah. Let's not have Suki.
All right.
I know her well enough, though.
Yeah, she's great. She's great. I just
Yeah.
bumped into her for the first time recently, actually, right outside the Botanic Gardens. But I don't want to waste anybody's time, so why don't we dig right in and get started? Hopefully, some other members will be joining us throughout the course of your presentations, but we should be good to go. So I got you first, Michael, on my agenda here. So just to run through the agenda real quick for the members of the committee, we're gonna, this is a welcome. So I'll kick off a welcome and circle back to that. And then we're gonna review 2 applications, one for Irie Vibes Cafe, one for Brooklyn Flea, DBA, Smorgasburg. We're gonna do a quick recap of the FDNY event that we hosted at Tivoli Towers last month. And then we're going to get into some details around marijuana licensing in Brooklyn Community Board 9. And then we can just kind of open it up for additional community safety concerns, and then we'll close things out. So I'm going to start off with a welcome. Hello, everyone. My name is Primo Lasana. I'm the chair of the Public Safety Committee here in Brooklyn Community Board 9. This is my, here we have Rashida. Rashida, welcome. This is my second term on the community board. Been a member for with 3 years now, going on 4, and previously served as the chair of the Youth Services Committee alongside some of the fine folk you have here, and have transitioned into the role of the Public Safety Committee chair in the last 6 months or so. I'd love to pass it around to some of our members just to give brief introductions. So Victor, maybe you could, or Felice, you just came off mute, so why don't you go first?
Okay, my name is Felice Robertson. I've been on the board since 2016. I've been, this is my second term with the, being as a member. I'm in, as a chair, I sit on different committees, the 71st Precinct Community Council, CHCC, WABA. These two organizations coincide with presidents of different blocks, and we pretty much collaborate on what's needed on our block, hence our community. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Felice. Pass it over to Victor, and then we'll close out with Rashida.
Hi, evening, everybody. I'm Victor Sanchez Veras. I'm new to the Brooklyn Community Board. I just joined this past August, I believe. I'm a public defender here in Brooklyn. I'm with Legal Aid, and I'm excited. I'm excited to be part of the committee and participate. I'm not in any other committee, so this is my only gig with the community board.
Right. Welcome, Victor. And I'll pass it along to Rashida to close us out.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rashida Sadiq. I've been a member of the community board since 2017. I've served on both the Youth Services Committee and also have been the past chair of the Public Safety Committee as well. I've been living in the neighborhood for going on, I would say now 30 plus years, my entire life. Went to school in the neighborhood from PS 92 to IS 61 to high school and back. So
61.
so love it, and just love being a part of the board.
Love it. Thanks so much, Rashida, the esteemed Rashida Sadiq. And then we'll pass it along to Michael shortly, but just want to give you an overview of the process here. You know, you've sent along your applications for consideration, which we have in our inbox here. And so we'd just love for you to share a little bit with us about yourself, kind of what you're bringing to the community with your business. And, you know, just walk us through kind of your proposition for the liquor license. If you could just kind of zoom in on the details a little bit, just kind of rehash the hours, if you're a full liquor license, et cetera. And, you know, particular interest as well to kind of what kind of spaces you'll be using, what kind of music. As you can imagine, we have to think about kind of the impact on the community from a noise perspective, et cetera. And then, you know, once you give that, we'll have a few questions for you. And then we will, if we have quorum, which I believe we do, Mia, because we have 5 members here, what we can do then is just kind of make voting. It'll happen at the end of this meeting. So you can stick around for that. You cannot stick around for that. It's totally up to you. And basically what that is just a recommendation on behalf of the committee to the larger community board as to whether we kind of approve the license or not. And then what happens next is it goes to the larger community board, and, you know, 99% of the time they take the recommendation of the committee. They might have additional questions. It might send us back to committee to answer some of those questions, but that's kind of the process overview.
Fully understood. Been there before.
Okay, you've been there before. Great.
Yes.
Cool. So seeing no questions, Michael, I'd love to turn it over to you to tell us a little bit about your business and your liquor license.
Well, the business is not mine. I'm doing this on behalf of Michelle Cordova. She's a longtime resident here from 1981. She's been in this community. She grew up here. She started a business called Irie Vibes, doing business as Pasa Pasa at the location for Rogers Avenue. This space has been open for about 2.5 years now. Again, she's a pillar of the community. She's done community work as far as the local gardens and things like that. She is trying, she has a vegan, vegetarian, ITEL restaurant, and she's just trying to get a liquor license to amplify that business model that she has going right there. There's no other, there's few stores that does what she does in the neighborhood as far as, healthy vegetarian meals and ITEL food. And she's just simply looking for a liquor license. And as for me, I've had, I'm helping her as a friend. I've had several businesses here in this neighborhood for the last 20 years or so. Wine shop, wine bar. In fact, I think I owned the first wine shop within this neighborhood, 65 Fenn on Fenimore Street. So I'm aiding her in that context where she can get this license, operate a healthy, strong business model. Hours are simple. She's there from 10 in the morning till midnight. If you have any other questions, please.
Great, thank you. I'll open it up for other members of the board to ask any questions. Do you know if this is a full liquor license or if it's a wine and beer?
No, this is a wine and beer.
It's wine and beer. Okay, great. I also see that there's an indication on the application that there's an outside space being utilized as well.
Yeah, I think what it is that according to the property line, she has about 2 feet that is not encased, and that she really does not need a sidewalk approval situation. Is just part of the property, if my understanding is correct.
Okay, so she's planning on serving alcohol in that small.
Right.
Facing, it's on the sidewalk, right? It's in the front.
Right. Right. So she's a corner location, so it's 2 corners. It's right there at Sterling and Rogers, so it's 2 corners, and she has an encasement, with brushes and trees and plants.
Okay, got it. I'll pass it along to Rashida.
I was actually going to ask you about the location. So you said Sterling and Rogers. So is that by the Gold Room over there?
No, that's I'm gonna say about 1.5 blocks, 2 blocks away from the Gold Room.
Okay. And so well, you answered that. So is her hours going to, I know you said she's in there from like 10 in the morning to midnight. But the hours that she's going to be actually for kind of like,
this is a 55-year-old lady, so she's probably gonna go till 10 o'clock. Last dinner will probably be 9:45, and she'll probably be out of there by 10:40. I'm giving her till midnight because she may need to do certain events that require a little later closing.
Okay.
Okay, and just for clarity, because you have 1 a.m. on Saturday on your application.
1 a.m. I mean, that's just the standard scenario for most bars within neighborhoods. So that's why I just put that there as a standard time. Again, I think very rarely that will ever take place, and I don't think there will be any outdoor seating at that point. Again, she's a 55-year-old lady that's retired, doing this, starting a new life, a new chapter in her world. So I don't think she's trying to extend her time frame that late.
Gotcha.
I put that on the license for events, maybe birthday parties that go a little longer, that, and again, no outdoor scenarios after a certain hour.
Okay, that might be a helpful amendment to make to your application, just because the outdoor hours, if applicable, section is blank. But then it also says that you plan on serving alcohol in the outdoor premises.
Yes,
There's a little bit of a discrepancy between those two pieces of information.
I will take a look at it and do whatever version of amendment is necessary.
Okay, sounds good. Rashida, did you have anything else?
No, that was it.
Okay, sounds good. Victor, Felice, anybody else have any questions?
I guess I'll ask. This is her first run at a business venture like this?
No. She's had a few restaurants. She worked for Verizon for almost 30 years, but within those time frames, she had a restaurant on Flatbush Avenue called the Itel Shack for quite a while. That shut down in 2017. And then she took this space after she retired, and she's been building it up, and she's trying to just take it for a little further.
Gotcha. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Victor. Felice, anything from you?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Great, thanks. If I could make one recommendation, Michael, it would be that Shelley make it to the community board meeting. It's often people have questions when the owner doesn't.
Oh no, she will be there for the full meeting, and she is an active participant. So she has been to many of these community board meetings over the years. So she's an active participant in her community. She needs that help, and I provide that help because I've had knowledge of this process.
Understood.
Yes.
Great. Seeing no further questions, I think we can move along to the second application, which is for Brooklyn Flea or Smorgasburg. So Jonathan, please go for it. Thanks, Michael. Appreciate you.
Yeah, no, and I'm gonna sign back in to see what you say at the end, but I have a 6-year-old birthday party I gotta attend.
Go do it. Go do it.
All right, man. Thank you guys very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, and thanks also for squeezing me in last minute. I was away last week, and my lawyer didn't tell me. Anyway, appreciate being put on the agenda so last minute. So my name is Jonathan Butler. I've lived in Clinton Hill for 20 years, raised my family here, and I suspect some of you have stumbled across Smorgasburg. But just for those of you who might not know, it's a big weekly food market that happens in the parking lot up above LeFrak. We've been doing it there since 2016, and we've been doing it actually in Williamsburg on the waterfront since 2011, where we also have a liquor license, which is also a similar scale. So we have a lot of experience managing liquor in big outdoor public situations. I also ran the food and liquor concessions at Summer Stage in Central Park from 2012, I think, to 2019. And last year started doing the Brick summer concert series as well, those concessions. So I think a good track record in that department. And we typically have about 60-65 food vendors in any given day. I would say the large majority of them are from Brooklyn, and I like to say, and no one's ever proved otherwise, that we're become the largest small business incubator really in New York City, right? What we've done is really create a way. It's so expensive to start a food business in New York City. Even when we started this, 10 years ago, it was expensive, but now it's even more expensive to start a food business in the city. And I like to think that we've kind of created a new stepping stone for businesses to start. So instead of needing, $200,000 to open a small little restaurant, with $2,000, they can set up and try out their business and, try different products out and get feedback from the community. So we've launched, probably hundreds of businesses in the time that we've been around. That's probably the most meaningful part of what we do to me. And it's a seasonal full liquor license, but we do not have a full bar. We usually have 3 beers on tap, a couple different wines, and 1 or 2 drinks. So there's no lineup of bottles or anything like that. It's like we'll have, the 1 drink that day will be a margarita, let's say, or something like that. And so there's no one doing shots or anything like that. It's, if you've been there, it's very family friendly affair. It'd be unusual if someone even has more than 1 beer, I think. We've never had any, in 10 years of doing this in all these locations, we've never had any, altercations or problems with people drinking too much or anything like that. So, and I tell you, it happens on Sundays, starting the first weekend in April and goes through the end of October on Sundays in Prospect Park.
Thanks for the full explanation of everything that y'all are doing. The application seems fairly aligned. This can be described as a renewal application, correct?
Yeah, it's a renewal. Exactly.
And the hours that you have listed here are kind of
It's
the
11 to 6, 1 day a week. Yeah.
day a week. I don't have a lot of questions personally. Rashida, you probably do.
No questions. I love the smorgasbord, and it's pet friendly too because I bring my dog there. So
Rashida, we gotta have a dog date.
Right on.
yes, definitely we have to plan it.
We'll do it at Smorgasburg, okay? This spring.
Yes.
Okay. Victor or Felice, any questions that either of you have?
No questions on my end. Thank you, Mr. Butler.
Thank you.
No, none on mine. I'm just listening. Sounds good.
Sounds good to us.
Well,
So
Thank you very much. I am going to sign off because I have a house guest. So I assume I'll get some kind of email or something, or should I check back in with the office tomorrow?
you'll get some kind of email, yeah. And if you don't, you can check back in with me. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Jonathan. Take
Bye.
care. Bye. All right. That was easy enough. Look at us moving through the agenda. Proud of us. Okay. Up next, let's talk about the FDNY event at Tivoli Towers. This will take 30 seconds. It was a nice little event. What we did was we set up in the lobby of Tivoli Towers. We had some nice support from the community board office who showed up, and it was Dante and Khalid, and they came through and hung out for a while in the beginning, and I met up with them, and FDNY showed up on time. They had 2 people. They set up a table with a bunch of information, and then just kind of started engaging with folks as they came in and out of the building. Tivoli is, as you know, rather large, and so there's a lot of traffic in that lobby. I left after like 10-15 minutes because I was just kind of awkwardly eating up the time of the folks from the FDNY when they could be doing their job of engaging the folks. But I think this, like, the learning was this is a really easy event for us to pull off because we don't really have to do anything other than reach out to the FDNY and say, can you come to this place and set up a table? And then they do the whole event, and they seem happy to do so. So I think that, like, we have a good opportunity to continue that, and maybe next year, instead of doing it in January, we can start doing it in November or September, or whenever it gets cold and we're starting to look ahead at the cold months. We've also been lucky in that we've had a mild winter so far this year. There was a pretty disastrous fire just outside of our community board boundaries earlier this year. And so I think, Suki's been pretty vocal about trying to get, and it was down south, I think on Lefferts or something like that. And so Suki's been pretty vocal about trying to get something going a little bit further south in the district. I think my inclination is always to do things close to where I live. I live right next door to Tivoli, so like it's easier for me to do that there. And I'm familiar with kind of the big buildings in the district, just being Tivoli and then Jackie Robinson, because I can see both from where I'm sitting right now. But I think that it would be great to have, other members of the fire safety, the public safety committee, suggesting places where we could pull off events like this. There's also kind of a whole menu of different events that FDNY will offer. So, but it depends on the kind of like promised attendance and I don't want to promise too much attendance, so we did kind of like a lower bar for this one. So just naming that. Any questions from anybody?
I was gonna
So
ask,
you-
like, is there, I mean, I
Mhm.
know we, like, the bigger, oh, sorry, the bigger, buildings, I'm just trying to picture like our community, but it was a good suggestion that you said, like, maybe figure out what other buildings have like a large, and we can maybe do that with some other buildings as well, but I'm off the top of my head, those are like the main big ones that I know of. I'm thinking maybe a block association. I mean, it'll be hard to actually do it in the winter time if we're doing it outdoors. So that kind of makes sense to do it in a building. Maybe a co-op, like I think we have some HDFC co-ops in the neighborhood. So, okay, so like maybe if we know some of them, like in other, like that could be something, because we know a lot of seniors or other people live in these type of co-op buildings and stuff like that. That maybe we can look at as well. But I don't know if we have like a list of the buildings.
You know, I'm an HDFC co-op and I was the board president of my building for 6 years, so I'm pretty well connected with the HDFCs in the neighborhood. So yeah, that's a great suggestion. I think for next year, probably just because it's February already. We're kind of passing the extreme heat season, if you will. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe we can get something going, but fingers crossed, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to see some snow this year because it feels weird, but maybe I'm alone in that. Felice, you wanted to say something.
Yes, I just wanted some clarity. You have inspectors coming in to us, preventions of fire hazards. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so what they do is it's staff members of the FDNY who kind of come in and will talk to people in the building about a few different things, right? Kind of like whatever questions that people have. And the idea is mostly prevention. And like honestly, the best way to do prevention is basically two things: encourage people not to use space heaters, and to make sure that people have properly installed fire alarms. And so the FDNY offers to anybody at this tabling event to give them free smoke alarms. And so like that's a big
Okay.
service that's offered by the table. And then the other piece is really just prevention information, making sure that people are properly securing fire doors in their buildings so that fire doesn't spread if a fire does occur. And so a lot of it is not just how do you prevent a fire from starting, but also how do you prevent a fire from spreading inside of a building.
Okay. Okay, I only ask because I know inspectors, fire inspectors actually, that conduct meetings like this. So I just wanted to make sure, you know, or hear that you had someone that covers all of that.
Yeah, it's very, yeah,
Okay.
exactly. The FDNY members who come, essentially like they looked around the lobby and they were like, okay, the fire doors are properly secured. They have the right notices and notifications on all of the doors. So I think on the one hand, I want to make sure that people don't feel like we're signing them up for an inspection, because not everybody's building is perfect and some buildings don't want to do some buildings also don't have the capital to spend the money on kind of the expectations, if you will, of the fire department. So I think it can be a little less threatening, if you will, to offer kind of just a tabling event. And so we typically will do that. We'll go straight to buildings. And in this case, it was the what's it called? The tenant leader, if you will, for Tivoli, who said, sure.
Yeah, Alicia.
Exactly, Alicia.
Yes. And I think that's excellent. And we don't really care about owners. We really care about the people.
Mhm.
And that will prompt them to do the right things for the people that are paying the rent. So for that union coming out of me. But
Makes
I
sense.
always I always look out for the tenants. It does prompt them. They go, oh, okay, I didn't know that. And it's maybe they're not aware of it, you know, it's not having the money, but they will cough up the money. I work for Office of Administrative Trials and Hearings, and I get these cases as well. If they're not the bill up to code, those violations come to my office. So they need to be up to code.
Yes, definitely. I will say that for a co-op like ours, the violations are a problem. But they create
Yeah.
problems, which I mean, people need to fix, but I think we were in a better financial position than other buildings to actually fix those problems. Whereas I know there are a number of HDFC co-ops that are not in a strong financial position, and when those violations start to stack up, it means, certain things for the building, like getting a mortgage can become difficult in the building, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. But we give, time to make these payments and corrections if it means one step at a time. But it's all about the people, and landlords, all they think is, it's okay, because that money that you have to take care of people. But
Yeah.
yes, I like how you're doing things. Beautiful.
Please. Appreciate it. Okay, cool. Let's definitely keep the fire safety rolling. I'm glad this is the first time we've done this on the Public Safety Committee. I think it's a good thing. I think we can do it more. And so this was a year for us to pilot it, to try it out. And then next year, I think we can probably have wider implementation and make a even larger footprint on the local community. So looking forward to doing that. Oh, there was something that I should have put on the agenda, Mia. I'm realizing that I did not put on the agenda. Who is that? What's that woman's name who is organizing a public safety event in March? I will search my inbox for it later, but there is a larger public safety event. What I do want to move on to, because it's on the agenda, is, and I just wanted to get this date on your calendar. I'm sorry, it's bothering me now that I can't remember her name. Let's move on to marijuana licensing. Rashida, maybe you could start us out and I can search my inbox and tell us a little bit about the event that you attended from the Office of Cannabis Management. I am sorry to interrupt your dinner, and I am jealous of your dinner.
No problem. No problem. So yes, I was able to get on a call with Fred and also Dante and a representative from the Office of Cannabis Management, just to kind of get an understanding of some of the things that, as they start, rolling out the licenses, community boards, what we can look at. And I mean, as you probably heard of, they opened up two, I think, like they gave out 2 licenses in the city in Lower Manhattan. So that was, I think, in Community Board 2. So she has suggested that we maybe contact them to see what their application is in regard to how they're giving them out to the different the different businesses that are going to be seeking licenses, because they do have to come before the community board. She also did mention that it can either be a public safety committee that they come to, or the economic development committee. So it's up to like the individual community boards to determine which committee is going to be kind of handling it. It kind of did make sense a little bit, I guess they were saying, because it's kind of like similar to the SLA licenses. But basically they're using that type of format. The thing about Brooklyn is that Brooklyn is under an injunction, so they actually cannot approve any licenses right now because there's litigation going on. And I'm sure everyone is familiar with seeing like all these smoke shops opening up and things like that. And you're like, wait, how are they started? So a lot of them do not have licenses. Unfortunately, there's not enough like inspectors or people to go out to kind of like, say, hey, this is what's happening. So it's up to kind of like the community to say, hey, did they, this is open, there's no license here. Also, just kind of like some of, when you look at them, they have to be within a certain area, like they can't also serve like liquor and be a dispensary of the cannabis. And then they also have like restrictions on where they can be located in regard to like schools and things like that. One thing that I thought was interesting as well was that even like you cannot put the marijuana leaf on like your signage and stuff like that. And I can tell you, I passed so many of them and I'm like, wait, that's a marijuana leaf right there. That's not allowed. So simple things like that, that they have to really kind of start getting a handle of. But I guess the big takeaways in Brooklyn, there's no approved licenses because there's an injunction. So, not sure how all of these kind of quarter ones are popping up, but this is where we are at right this time. And I guess, as I said, for our committees is just to determine what the applications are going to look like for when they come before the community boards. And that's it.
Thanks so much, Rashida. Thank you for taking time out of your week to attend that call and gather some information for us. It's incredibly helpful. It's aligned with kind of some of the information that I knew already. What I sent in an email to folks last month, and also wanted to just update and just reiterate kind of in this group, was that these licenses are not tied up in court in Manhattan. And so the community boards in Manhattan, the first marijuana shop or whatever opened in the Village earlier this month. And there are community boards in Manhattan that are kind of designing their own system of rules for how they are going to process these marijuana licensing applications. So, we're in a good position because it's currently tied up in court for Brooklyn. But the county of Manhattan has already begun to allow this. And so we have the ability to take a look at the applications that the Manhattan community boards have started to put together, so that we can take some learnings from what they've done and apply their practice, if you will, to our own practice. And so I think really the question is, what do we want to be asking marijuana licensees or applicants as they look to come into Brooklyn? And what can we learn from those applications, and how do we want to alter our own application to make sure that it's reflective of our needs in the community? I think there's some learning that we can also do from the SLA applications that we review on a regular basis. And so if y'all look in your email addresses and inboxes, and Mia, maybe you could forward this to Victor, just because I didn't get it to Victor, but I think I got it to everybody else who's on this call. What you'll see is that there's a Manhattan CB2 application that's attached to the email. And so it's pretty comprehensive. In fact, I think that there's probably something like, there's a good 24 questions. And then also it asks folks to include in the application org mission statement, how long you've operated, what population you're serving, what services you provide. How does the sale of cannabis further your mission? Frankly, I think that this application personally for me is a little bit long. So I think that there are pieces that we could take from it, but we can maybe able to reduce it a bit. But I also understand kind of the high bar that they're setting for these businesses, as ultimately they're distributing an intoxicant inside of the community, and that's largely only what they do. And so, I mean, me personally, nobody's politics come into it, but like, I think that this is something that marijuana is already being sold, decriminalized in New York. Ultimately, we're just creating an avenue for taxes to be collected on a business that's already operating outside of the bounds of business. So like, I think that's my approach to it. Everybody here can have their own approach. But ultimately, at some point, this will make it through litigation and will come to Brooklyn Community Board 9, and we want to be as prepared as possible for when that comes. I think we've taken a lot of the correct steps to be prepared. And I think like the last step that we want to take is putting together an application and then putting it in front of the larger community board so that it can be kind of voted on and passed. It's going to be a process. It's going to be a process that's probably going to take a few months, because the larger community board is going to have a lot to say. I think we just want to come correct basically to the larger community board and show kind of that we've done our homework. And I think we've already done a lot of our homework, right? Like Rashida's met with OCM, Rashida's a lawyer, great. We have got that stamp of approval already. And then we're sourcing some other community boards applications and learning from those. So maybe at this point, what I'd love to do is just pause and see if folks have questions or thoughts as we move forward, or if you want to point out any blind spots that I may have, because I'm sure that I have them.
I'll just add, I think it's worth knowing or digging further into the specifics on what is the law on. There's a specific percentage of those licenses that are supposed to be given out to folks that are have had expunged convictions, I think, for marijuana arrests. and like the details, like who's eligible and all that fine print on that end. I'd imagine a lot of people are going to be curious and approach possibly with questions on like, hey, I have this like misdemeanor conviction from 89, 92, and I'm interested in possibly getting in the business of this now. How do I apply under that special provision? So that's just where I went.
That's a really important point, and Victor and Rashida, you both work in the legal space, so maybe the two of you can take that on as some homework to figure out, because y'all probably will understand it a bit more than I will personally. So that would be a helpful homework if y'all would take that on for our next meeting. Rashida,
I
maybe
agree because,
Oh.
yeah, I agree because I would present that to the attorney I work with to make sense of some things, ask questions. So yes, we're fortunate to have two attorneys on.
I would say attorneys that don't specialize in this area, but we can definitely figure out and get the information from the cannabis department because they probably have the more information.
100%.
Okay, everything helps.
Yeah.
Everything
awesome.
helps.
What we can do, maybe y'all can just draft an email and we can send it over to Dante to send to the Office of Cannabis Management. They seem to have been very responsive so far. Cool.
Just another, sorry. I think we're supposed, I don't know if it was on the agenda before of the larger community board, but I think there was going to be a presentation from somebody. I don't know, Mia, am I like mistaking that it was on and then it was taken off or adjourned for another meeting? Or was that something that was going to be discussed?
Yeah, I don't know when the presentation is going to happen. I know there was talks, but I don't think it's been solidified.
Okay.
For an overall presentation to the larger board. I know that they were organizing small community meetings to kind of give like an overview of the process and what it means. But they were doing like in-person meetings. I know they had one in LES the other day at the, I believe, Henry Street Settlement.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'll look into it and get the info, and if anything's available, I'll shoot it over to you guys.
I'd love for them to come into one of our actual community board meetings and to do it in the front before things turn into a disaster in our community board meetings. The last one was a mess.
Yeah.
So I think like, yeah, if we can get out in front and do them early in the community board meeting, just so that both the community and our community board can have the information, that would be great. So I can lobby for that when we send an email over to Dante for OCM as well. Cool. So those are some good starting spaces. I think the next thing that we probably want to do is just put together like a Google Doc for this group to start populating with some questions that we might want to include on the application. So I don't think that we necessarily need to like dig into the fine details of that today. I think it's probably going to be a more iterative, collaborative process. It's going to take some time. And maybe what we can do is just give ourselves all the homework of over the course of the next month, populating some questions into a document that we think is going to be helpful. And so that the next time we come together, we have an application that we've created and we can kind of review that. Does that sound good to everybody? Awesome.
Yeah.
So we've got some good marching orders here. So Rashida, Victor, maybe you can collab, or one of you can just take the lead on just a quick email around the eligibility of prior convicts or the accused, or I don't even know what the language is, so that's why I'm not a lawyer. And then we'll also ask OCM to come into one of our community board meetings that's upcoming. Maybe it's probably not going to be the one that's going to happen this month, but maybe we can get them into the next month one in March. And then we can go from there. The last thing that I did want to tell you is that I'm going to send this right now just so y'all have it. Is that this event, who's the other one? Yakov, right? He's on the committee. Is what's his name? Nicholas Almanor actually on this committee, Mia?
No, Mr. Alvenar isn't on the committee, but
He just comes sometimes.
his participation rate is just off the charts. in
Yeah,
all of the committees.
that
Yeah.
guy loves the community board. We should get
Yeah,
some
he
more support,
does.
honestly. Okay, cool. So I just sent y'all an email, and it is an event that is being organized by Arna Lincoln. And I sent it to you as well, Mia. Yeah, so you're familiar with this, right? It just popped into my brain as we were talking. I had a call with her last month. It's being organized at the Brooklyn Children's Museum. It is going to be on Wednesday, March 22nd. I think, Mia, if you could do me the great favor of sending out a calendar appointment for this. You know how much I love a calendar appointment. That would be incredibly helpful. It is, yeah, Arno works for Interborough, which is the Interborough Developmental and Consultation Center. She used to work for the city council. And now she works there and she's putting this together. And so there's a place where you can RSVP, but Mia, I'd love to circulate this as well to the larger community board and kind of the community board newsletter. And then I don't know if we have the opportunity to talk at larger community board meetings because committees typically don't speak out. We typically report out to the executive committee, but I'll talk to them about garnering some time to pitch this and to give them a brief update on where we are with the Office of Cannabis Management, which I think would be helpful just because everyone's kind of wondering about it. We don't have to do anything for this. I think all we got to do is show up and support the event and try to get other folks in Brooklyn Community Board 9 to come to this. And I think it's going to be a collaboration between Community Board 8, Community Board 9, and Interborough. Felice, you look like you had something to say. No, all good? Okay, cool. Jay, please go for it.
Great. Hi, how are you? Jay Sored. So in other words, the different marijuana shops are going to have to go through the community board. Is that how it's going to be? And I guess public safety, you guys are going to regulate them similar to like the liquor shops?
Correct.
Gotcha. And do they have any rules of like, you know, like notice or anything like that? Like 60-day note, any like specific rules? Like you got to tell the local community, anything out there that you guys heard about yet? Or is everything in the mist?
There is a long list of rules that are too many for me to go through on this call, but we have a number of documents that are being circulated by the Office of Cannabis Management. You can also go onto the Office of Cannabis Management's website to see these same documents. We probably have 6 or 7 of them with a bunch of bullets on them about kind of rules and regulations around these shops. And so I would say if you're interested in kind of getting to know into the finer details of those items, you should go for it. But this is going to be regulated kind of similar to the way that liquor licenses are regulated by both the state liquor authority and the community boards, which have a soft power to make recommendations. The local community board will have soft power to make recommendations to the Office of Cannabis Management, which will then be the kind of actual enforcer of rules, if you will.
Gotcha. I look forward to the day when maybe there'll be somebody commenting on Zoom who's actually smoking pot. I think for me it'll be entertaining and kind of interesting. I had a different question on a different subject, if I could ask you. The Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance is what regulates a lot of the shelters when it comes out to like security and everything like that. So there's a hot topic in which in East Flatbush on Clarkson, there's a bunch of shelters, a couple of them over there. And there's been like various different incidents. There's been a recent incident that happened where a member of the Jewish community was randomly assaulted on Remsen Avenue. I'm not saying that it came from the shelters, but it's just a random assault out of nowhere. So my issue or my question was, is it possible to find out the sort of data on serious incident reports? So with each of the shelters, as far as public safety goes, they have this serious incident reports, and they report it to like Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance. And I know maybe some data may be helpful, even in, giving information to people where it would actually give info on both sides of the argument. People who want more supportive housing could show, look, there's not that much going on. And other people, could say, okay, maybe there is an issue. But the serious incident reports go directly to Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance. It's not, that's different than what's published right now with the NYPD, where the NYPD has a certain shelter arrest report thing. So I'm not talking about what's public, what the NYPD posts. I'm talking about if there could be some disclosure as to serious incident reports, redacted, of course, but just where people could see, okay, how much is actually happening, at the shelters. There's 2 shelters on Albany and Clarkson. There's also another transitional shelter between Utica and Albany. So that was my question. If I can get some maybe assistance, or if there could be a presentation and some data on public safety and what's going on, in the shelters to inform people.
Yeah, what I'll say is that we work closely with the 71st precinct, which oversees the vast majority of this district.
Right.
Come to our meetings pretty regularly and give us updates on crime in the borough, in the district. The last time that we got a report for them was in December of 2022, so just 2 months ago, or rather a month and a half ago, because they came towards the end of the month. And so those statistics that they give us are the major crime statistics, and they report for the entire 71st. It's not as specific to the square blockage, or it's not specific to the shelters as you described. We could request them, certainly. We can do that. What I will say is, what you're looking at in 2022 is a very different year from 2021. 2021 was the lowest record of crime in the history of New York City. And so when you kind of do comparative statistics, it's all out of whack, because 2021 was a standout year. That's not the word I'm looking for. Abnormal. And then so we're seeing a rise in all crime currently within the district, but that's due largely in part to the fact that 2021 was the lowest year on record.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just to tell you, the serious incident reports are the reports that are handled in-house. That's where the cops aren't part of it. Actually the cops can be part of it, but there's other situations where they don't call the cops, and it's just in the serious incident report. So the serious incident report covers when the police come in, but also those situations where the police are not brought in. So it's going to be a more expansive list. So that's why
those are incidents that happen inside of a shelter, correct?
Yeah, that relate to it. Yeah.
Right. So crime that happens outside of the shelter would be included in kind of what the NYPD is reporting out on. So maybe you could say a little bit more about the relevance of crime that's occurring inside of shelters.
Yeah, that would be a good way of phrasing it.
Well, that's a question for you. Like, why do we want the data of kind of the crime that's occurring inside of shelters if it's not affecting the outside community?
Great question. If somebody beats the hell out of somebody because they take their cell phone or something like that, I think that's somebody that, people want to know, how often does it happen, as far as security risk and everything else and everything like that, and how many you're bringing into the community that maybe pose that need more care than just maybe a shelter where just people are at. Maybe they need more medical care, etc. So the incidents that happen inside, I think, are very relevant, because when a person steps outside, if you're walking on that street, you're going to want to know that the person is, okay and doesn't have an issue that could harm people.
Good. And what's your, are you involved with how are you involved with kind of what's happening at the shelters?
how am I involved with it?
Mhm.
I think it's, number one, I think it's an issue. If the people who take place in the community boards and everything, I'm very into East Flatbush issues. So
Sure.
that's what the issue is. East Flatbush issues, I think are important. And there's been a lot of complaints in the local community around there that there's issues with people coming out of the shelters. Specifically, one of the shelters, there's a transitional shelter that has a policy where you don't have to come back at night. You could stay out all night and you don't have to come back, and they don't check it, which is different than the regular shelters. So like the name of it is Breaking Ground, and they put right on their page that we're different than the shelters. You don't have to check in or whatever each night. You can stay out and whatever. So there's a lot of incidents that happens, and some of my friends have been affected by people who are just random assaults on children and everything else. And I have an interest also in the Jewish community as well, which has suffered a certain amount of hate crimes. Not saying that they are from people from the shelters, but there are certain situations where somebody would just randomly hurt a child, spit at somebody. So it's sort of taking a look at everything that's out there. If there's certain people that need care, if there's certain things going on in a shelter in which there's a certain amount of violence or harm, the serious incident reports will say whether or not it's occurring or not occurring. If you Google the word serious incident reports, you'll see that it's a concern, and some of the shelters aren't that safe.
What I can share with you is that the smallest amount of crime increase has actually occurred in felonious assaults in this district. So it is, of the 7 major crimes, the one to see the smallest amount of increase. There's a 10% increase from 2021 to 2022 in felonious assaults. Almost all other crime incidents are up about 35% across our district. So that is one piece of data that's probably relevant to the question that you're asking. But I'll pass it along to Rashida, who has a question as well. Still on mute, Rashida, still on mute.
Oh, thank you. I'm just trying to get clarification on what Jay was asking for the Public Safety Committee to do. Are you asking us to get information from the shelters, request their information, or are you requesting for us to get it from the city? I'm just a little confused on what's the ask.
Thank you for clarifying what I failed to clarify and say. A FOIL request from the Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance on the amount of, let's say, going back maybe like 6 months, finding out the serious incident reports for the shelters on Clarkson with the information redacted so we could see what's going on. Not all of the NYPD reported crimes that is online right now are in the serious incident reports. So it's a bigger list. So I'm looking for a FOIL request, because if I do it, I know it's going to happen, though. I'm probably going to be ignored.
Okay, that's what I was just trying to get to.
Thank you.
What the actual ask was. Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Jay. We will do our best. I will say that I would certainly, if I were to make this ask on behalf of Community Board Night, I would want it to be with a lot more context than what appears to be, 4 months of data inside of a vacuum. I'd want to compare it to previous data. I'd want to understand how incident reports are changing over time, what the nature of those incident reports are. And so before I'm just going to throw that data out into the public to be used for whatever purpose it might be used for, I'd want to make sure that it exists in relativity to other data as well. So we'll do a little bit of work here in terms of understanding what exactly we would like to ask for, making sure that your 4 months of data is included inside of that larger data set. But we'll make the request.
Yeah, it's basically public records, like 6 months of it, and I'll email you maybe through the board, and maybe I can get like a contact and everything like that. because there's stuff going on in East Flatbush where there's going to be a big increase in the amount of supportive housing, which basically the target populations are the homeless, chronically homeless, seriously mentally ill, and everything like that. So it sort of feeds in, and I would just caution, it's best to get the public records and to maybe disclose it instead of like, I don't need anybody to issue a report, but I think it's just having the data of what it is so people could see it. If it's public, they're going to give it. It's just I've had problems with getting FOIL requests from New York State agencies. They'll delay it for over a year, and other people in the community also have done it. We've been stonewalled, so.
We may wind up facing the same issue. I think that as you can imagine, there's a lot involved with a request, a lot of consideration involved in a request like the one that you're making. Obviously, not in my backyard is something that is raised often. There is quite a divisive nature at the moment, also amongst, or has been constantly in Crown Heights, historically amongst communities of color and the Jewish community that exists in Crown Heights and East Flatbush, et cetera. So we'd want to be thoughtful about that, not to fuel any fires.
Let me comment on that directly. I can tell you that in East Flatbush, in terms of any sort of like divisiveness and everything like that, I've seen nothing like that whatsoever. Matter of fact, I've seen nothing but like unity on various different issues. So I respectfully, in terms of East Flatbush and what goes on and everything like that, I don't see it at all. Matter of fact, I work with in terms of activists in different groups, most of all the activists in the Black community and everything like that. And I've worked with Caribbean block associations in East Flatbush who've said that they're losing a lot of members because of the problem of oversaturation of the homeless and that they're defecating on their lawns. So in terms of any sort of issues between different groups, there's everybody who has families and everything else who cares about quality of life. They're on the same page with this. This won't be any of a concern. If you speak to the people there, I know of nobody I know very few people from, to be honest, to be blunt, since you brought it up, from the Black community who would say, I'm for an oversaturation of social services when it comes to homeless shelters. It's the opposite. But I respect your thoughts.
Yeah, I would say that historically in this community board, we've had, I don't know if you're familiar with Chaim Deutsch, came to this community board in 2020 after putting forth an incredibly divisive political ad and then saying some pretty inflammatory things inside of this space, which led to divisiveness. And so I would name that as an experience that the community board has had. And so I want to be thoughtful around those sorts of processes as we continue, because there is an experience that this community board has had with allegations towards the Black community in particular.
I would just caution you. I would be careful upon speaking for what the Black community says and what they don't say. But I will tell you my personal experience. First of all, as far as Chaim Deutsch goes, there's different politicians. There's a difference between the grassroots and everyday people on the streets and somebody who comes in for a political campaign who may be more conservative. There's community issues, and what I personally see is that, and I've said it before, is that certain neighborhoods are a dumping ground for oversaturation and the city's problems. And I think bringing facts in terms of what happens in the shelters and around there, I think it's not a divisive issue, and I think that the majority of people want a decent quality of life, and I think it's not a divisive issue. And what one politician says doesn't represent, the fact that people get along very well with each other. I had a property on Schenectady. Everybody got well. They got along well. We had block parties together and everything. So I don't see any divisiveness if it's between politicians, if it's between community board members. But I don't see a divisiveness at all. I speak to. I speak to all of like the Black activists. We combine our information on everything. I just,
I appreciate you
Yeah.
speaking on behalf of the Black community and cautioning me not to speak on behalf of the Black community.
I'm telling about my personal experiences. I'm telling about my personal experiences, but a statement that says,
You just told me that the Black community it has certain opinions in the community, no?
I've said that I've spoken to different people and I haven't heard a statement saying that there's a certain sort of divisiveness. So I don't speak for that. I simply say that when I was in East Flatbush, everybody got along. I don't see the the divisiveness which you allude to. I don't see. And I simply say that there's a community issue. And I simply say that oversaturation of social services and homeless shelters is not something that divides people. And I could quote I can quote block associations. I've worked with the 58th Street Block Association who are against oversaturation of social services. And my comment is I disagree with any sort of putting out there that there's a division on the issue of oversaturation of social services. And I'm just talking about my experiences. I don't speak for the Jewish community, and I don't think we should make blanket statements. So I'll leave it at that. I disagree with any sort of divisiveness. And
I would also say that
Appreciate it.
elected representatives are also, yes, they're politicians. They're also literally representatives, right?
no,
No, they're not representatives.
they're
Elected representatives. is not-
they're representatives about as much as people on the community board represent the individual people, or the grassroots. Okay, I would just caution not to make certain statements and maybe walk around East Flatbush and around the area, and ask people what they feel before making a statement like that. I disagree, but thank you.
Sure. Okay. Thanks for your time. Rod?
Yes, hi, how you doing? Question, has there ever been thought about having a presentation done by the Office of Human Resources, the Human Resource Administration for the Department of Homeless? Maybe they can give a presentation on what the overall plan is. And I would think that they have direct ties with the state as far as what the plans are, as far as monies, funding, or even placement of the homeless shelters, and just to get an idea what the overall plan is. I don't know if that's a good idea, just a suggestion.
Appreciate it, Rod. I think that would be a great suggestion for our housing committee, as homeless shelters are directly tied to a housing issue. I think if we present homelessness as a public safety issue, that's the kind of dangerous territory that I don't want to enter into. And so I think that it would be good for us to go to the housing committee to talk about a housing issue. And so I'm happy to, you can certainly reach out to Mia, who can provide the information for the public, for the chair of the housing committee. And I think that would probably be a wiser approach than offering shelters as a public safety concern.
Okay, that's a very good idea. I agree.
Thank you, Rod. All right. Let us continue in this conversation. So the next piece that we have up on our agenda is to move into the items around voting. So you came back at a good time, Michael. And so we are going to dig into your application first. So Mia, can you just confirm for me that amongst the 5 members present, we have a quorum?
Hold on. It's just 4 of you. It's yourself, Victor, Rashida, Felice.
Yes, it's 4 of us. That's correct.
Yeah.
Four?
You're at 4 to
That
8.
half?
You can just bring it forth to exec.
Okay, we'll bring
You
it.
can make the decision as a chair to bring it forth.
Okay. All right, Michael, I'm sorry to disappoint you. We're going to bring this to executive committee. And what we'll do is we'll email you afterwards. We basically need a quorum in order to be able to vote on this. We have like 4 of our 8 members or something, so it's 50% instead of being 51%.
Yeah, I got this. I got this. You
Yeah.
needed one more human being.
Yeah, we needed one more human being. Mia, when is the executive committee meeting?
Give me one moment.
Just want to get you a date so that you know when it's going to happen, Michael.
And going forward, are all meetings are done Zoom?
Yeah,
At this point,
they're all
yeah,
Zoom
again.
now. Yeah,
So that'll be the evening of the 21st. So, yeah, you can move it forward to exec there where they will make the determination if it'll move forward to general board.
so Michael, just so you know, you don't have to attend on the 21st. What we'll do is we'll come and I'll give a presentation essentially to the executive committee about your application, and I'll give a recommendation and they'll vote, and then we won't need this committee's quorum in order to move it into the larger community board meeting. So you should. Oh, go
You
ahead.
mentioned some blank scenarios. I can amend those, amend the application to, as far as the sidewalk scenario, and have it in your office by Monday or so.
Perfect.
All
That
right,
would be for us.
okay,
All right, so we'll see you then.
yes,
All right,
yes. Thanks again, guys.
appreciate you, Michael. Rashida, you came on. Did you need anything, or did you just finish your dinner?
Just finished my dinner. I didn't think you wanted to see me eat the crab. It was curry crab.
It was crab? I'm pretty jealous. Okay, Rod, good to see you as well. Did you want to share anything? And then Jay, I see you have your hand up. We'll come to you.
No, I'm fine. Everything's fine.
All right, appreciate you. Jay, go for it.
Yeah, just a final comment, and I don't mean to come into the committee, creating any controversy and all that, but one source that I'd be happy to. There was a situation on Rogers. There was a homeless shelter that came to this community board around 3 years ago. I don't know if you were around on the board then, but it was on Rogers Avenue, and it was a women's shelter. And there was a big town hall hearing. You had Letitia James and the whole community came out, especially from people who were there. And what you had was, in terms of how the community feels about certain issues, it was very loud. It was, and the majority was predominantly, African-American people speaking on the issue. And they were against having that shelter in a very strong way. And Letitia James said, this community has more than its fair share. She acknowledged it. So, just to tell you the shelter issue, and I'd be happy to share the video also, if I can. I'll email it to the board, and if she wants to share it. But I think that there's a lot of sentiment on against oversaturation of social services and things that can cause displacement, which goes to quality of life and different challenges. So the 2017 town meeting, I think is relevant to seeing how an entire community reacted to a shelter on Rogers Avenue.
Rashida, why don't you take over for me? Go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to, because I was part of the board and I remember that it was actually the housing committee. That's what we're just trying to make a distinction on which committee would probably be the better one to handle something like this. It was the housing committee that took the lead on that issue with the shelter and the oversaturation in the community. And yes, that could come up, but it wasn't a public safety route that they were going. So as Primo has said, it's more about, we don't want to make this shelters as a public safety issue. It's a housing issue.
Right.
And that's why we suggested that it go through the housing committee, because they have more of the oversaturation and, the unhoused and things like that. Just my opinion from being a part of that 2000, being a part
You're
of
right.
that, remembering that meeting and remembering that issue
Right.
coming up, because I know that was Beverly was actually the chair of the housing committee at that time as well.
You're right. That was around, I think, in 2018 or 2017 is
Yeah,
when
I remember I was here since 2017.
Yeah,
so-
is when the video was. And one of the things, there wasn't a public safety issue that was attached to it, but there is a public safety issue now because a lot of Jews in the area are suffering hate crimes. And there's a video, there was testimony that was given at the most recent SECRA draft EIS, where women who had kids were being slapped and spit on and various different attacks. So there was a public safety element in terms of that's happening right now. And it may be different than the concerns back then. because of
Well, is
the,
it tied to the homeless? That's why we're trying to make a distinction. You're
yeah,
saying
sure,
public
right. So,
safety
so
regarding these issues, but is it the
right,
shelters? So I think we
right.
need to just make a distinction
exactly. So,
on
so,
what we're asking,
yeah.
because if you're asking the Public Safety Committee to get information regarding the crime that's affecting public safety, but step aside, we're not tying it to the shelters, but are you tying it to the shelters?
I'm not saying that it's coming from the shelters, because I don't know that the person, when it happens, is from the shelters, but I'm interested in the public data as a public safety aspect, because the crimes that happen are, they are random, unprovoked attacks that are.
They're not tied to the shelters. That's what we're just trying to.
Right.
Are you
So,
tying
so,
it to the
so
shelters? Because if we're
I'm,
asking for shelter information, that
I'm,
would be something different than what you're asking.
so I'm looking for information on violent incidents that happen in the shelters to see if that's something that possibly could be a risk factor when people walk around the block from the shelters. I'm looking to see the amount of
Okay.
violent incidents that happen that are not reported, that are part of, because there's a lot of information from the serious incident reports does not include, it includes a lot of information. The NYPD reports that's online doesn't include all of the stuff from the serious incident reports. So I'm saying from the public information, people should know, is there an issue of a lot of perhaps violence or things that are going on in it? And that's, it's public data, it's foilable, but they don't respond to it many times. It's both a housing issue, in my humble opinion, as you mentioned correctly, but it's also a public safety issue, and it happens a lot. Every 2 weeks, there's somebody who gets, randomly punched out by somebody, and a lot of the incidents that happen, I'm not saying that they are from the shelters, but I'm saying that it would be good to find out the information and data, because some of the situations are where people may have mental health issues, and and the shelters might have individuals who have mental health issues because that's part of their target population.
I think we understand the connection that
Okay,
might be looking to draw between the serious
Okay.
incident.
fair
reports and
enough. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So,
I'll take
um, we'll take a look, and we'll do a little bit more chatting with the NYPD. And then I think we'll also talk with the housing chair as well. They might have a more direct connection to this shelter situation than we do, because serious incident report sounds like it's something that frankly is going to fall a little bit more under the housing committee than us, just because we don't have those connections. We have connections to the NYPD, but we can take a look. I think also hate crimes are very serious, and what we can do is we can take a look at hate crime incidents within, or we don't know if they're hate crime incidents or they're felonious assaults or whatever, but we can look at all of those things and try to get you some meaningful data on that as well.
Okay, great, thanks.
All right, so with that, I will bring us to a close, and we have some follow-up to do from this committee. Jay, Rod, thank you both for being here. Appreciate it. Hopefully to see you more in the future. Take care,
Roger
everybody.
that.
Good night.
Okay.
Night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.